Chapter 4. How are things really? Don't think you are going to conceal thoughts by concealing evidence that they ever existed. How did your co-workers meetings go? Is your new neighbor's girlfriend a keeper or on the way out? Is your employee truly happy with his new assignment? These tactics will reveal you what someone is really feeling regardless of how tight-lipped he is. Sign 1. The power of perspective. Have you ever experienced the incredible on a roll phenomena? When absolutely nothing gets in your way, you are unstoppable and succeed every time you try. Then there are times when nothing goes right. Everything you touch seems to go wrong and you are afraid to even get out of bed. What causes us to get carried along on such a streak? Fascinating research shows it is caused by the way in which our transitional self concept has been shaped around unfolding events. We see ourselves as that kind of person, hence, we perform in a consistent manner. Even events seemingly beyond a person's complete control can be subject to this law. Let's take a look at one area and its impact on our self-concept. A study shows when someone is presented with a small request and subsequently honors it, he is infinitely more likely to agree to a larger request, the things we wanted him to do in the first place. However, if he is not first presented with a smaller request and subsequently does not complete the smaller request, he has no unconscious motivation for consistency. The following study demonstrates the foot in the door technique, a tendency for people who have first complied to a small request to comply later with a larger request. Friedman and Fraser asked homeowners if they would allow a huge drive carefully sign to be placed in front yard. Only 17% give permission. Other residents were first approached with a smaller request to put a 3-inch "Be a Safe Driver" sign in front window. Nearly all residents agreed. When approached a few weeks later, the same group overwhelmingly agreed to have gigantic plate sign placed in the front yard. When we take small steps in one direction, we strive to maintain a sense of consistency by then agreeing to larger requests. Simply, people agreeing to the smaller request have reshaped their self-concept to include the definition. They are serious about driver safety. Therefore, agreeing to the larger request is doing something for a cause they already firmly believed in supporting. The effect of this phenomena extends to many areas of our lives. If you ask a room full of salespersons whether they have had a similar experiences, all hands will go up. For example, you are calling a list of leads and your success comes in streaks. Similarly, you find when things are not going well, they are really not going well. Our world and how we interact with it is largely determined by our own perception, and our perceptions are anchored in our self-concept, the way we see ourselves. A person's self-concept is generally fixed, but it stretches over a lot of territory and is altered depending upon recent events. Therefore, you can often predict what has happened by taking notice of what is happening. 3 types: personal specific, personal non-specific, and generic. Personal specific. Research regarding memory and behavior concludes that people base self-concept on availability or how easily they can bring information to mind. For instance, if you are asked to think of several times when you acted confidently and you are able to recall the events with relative ease, overall you think of yourself as confident. Conversely, if you cannot come up with an example, you can conclude that you are more cautious and hesitant by nature. Thus, your subsequent behavior is likely consistent with a cautious and hesitant image, and you are more reserved in your actions. Occasionally, something happens in your life, either to you or caused by you, to make you temporarily reshape the way you see yourself and your world. A salesperson has lost three big accounts in his past few days. The next time he walks into a client's office, he will be less sure than usual and more hyper focused. Depending upon interest level and how badly he needs to make the sale, he will become more anxious and over analyze the situation to make sure he is on the top of it and is not missing anything helpful or hurtful. Of course, the exception is a person who has lost several key accounts but can brush himself off, recite a few affirmations, and meet his next client with renewed vigor and passion. However, this goes against the grain of human nature and is less likely to happen. A poker player has lost two big hands in the past 10 minutes. His self confidence is temporarily molded as very unlucky or one not playing very well. His decision to bluff will be skewed, and all things being equal, he will not do so. Aggressive play will only happen with a strong hand. The general rule, he becomes more gun shy and is statistically less likely to take chances. If you have ever known someone who has had a traffic accident, his subsequent driving changes. For example, if he tries to move into the left lane and did not see the oncoming car that subsequently hit him, he might become more thorough or even over thorough when shifting lanes in the same way again. Or perhaps someone who has been recently rear ended might glance up at the rear view mirror often very often out of an exaggerated fear of a repeat scenario. Personal, the second one, B, is personal non specific. Someone's transitory self concept is also shaped by generic situation. Even something seemingly innocuous like someone paying you a compliment can put you in I am on top of the world mode. When things are going our way, we feel better, more confident, and optimistic in other unrelated situations. Bernard has had his teeth whitened and everyone tells him he looks 10 years younger. Therefore, he will be more inclined to take on a new project or get behind an idea that he may have previously resisted. A person with a renewed sense of confidence likely encountered or was recently thinking about a situation whereby he felt a sense of empowerment, respect, or control. C. Generic. Even reading the newspaper can change how we see our world and ourselves. For instance, after hearing about a major plane crash, people tend to overestimate personal vulnerabilities to the risk of flying. The reason is this: the crash is most available in memory. The odds have not changed, yet our perception have changed. Subsequently, our thoughts, attitudes, and behavior follow. We literally become more afraid when, even though statistically and realistically speaking, nothing has changed. For example, a life insurance salesman calls on a potential customer, Mr. John, whose co worker, a 40-year-old man, died of a heart attack 2 days ago. Mr. John, thinking, gets warped and his interest level increased. He believes life insurance may be more important than previously suspected. Whenever you want to gain a glimpse into someone's past, notice how he handles himself in the present. By looking carefully at this section, you can pick up if his outlook is at all skewed, in which case you can surmise that something recently happened to alter how he currently perceives his reality. Now let us read technique 2. How is he feeling? Human beings continually seek purpose and cause in events either unrelated or beyond understanding. Ask the person to observe an unusual yet ambiguous event or happening. If he seems to indicate it is a sign of good fortune, he is feeling optimistic. However, if he says the event is an indication of something negative, he is feeling pessimistic. For example, John walks out of a meeting about a new secret program for which he is trying to garner support. He cannot divulge any of the meeting's detail and is putting on his best poker face to avoid giving away any indication that the company will be supporting his plan. If you want to find out, you merely say something such as, "Did you know the office clock stopped at exactly 7:11 and then began running again?" If he responds with something like, "Nothing ever works right around here," you can surmise he is not feeling good about his chance. However, if he responds with a statement such as, "Maybe we should go to the Atlantic City and play blackjack," you can assume he is feeling more optimistic about his recent meeting. Regardless of what a person chooses to reveal concerning his feelings, no matter how neutral he tries to be, he often cannot avoid the unconscious leaks that spill into the current situation. Technique 3. Contradictions. Individual gestures need to be looked at separately and in conjunction with what is being said. Besides obvious inconsistencies, such as shaking of the head from side to side while saying yes, subtler but equally revealing signs of someone's true feeling exist. Whenever you are faced with dual masses, here is the rule of thumb. Trust emotional displays over the spoken words. Anytime a physical gesture, facial expression, or words are incongruent, you can be fairly sure that what this person says is different from what he believes. A man is frowning or has his fist clenched while professing his love for his girlfriend. He is not feeling very loving towards her. Or your car mechanic with a faint smile tells you he is sorry, but the part he ordered came in wrong. Assume he is not sorry, the part is not wrong, or both. We often witness type of dual messages but quickly dismiss them as our brain seeks to organize information in an easily digestible way. But if we pay attention, we can halt the natural process of information selection and see more clearly what's really going on. Beware of the following signs that the message intended for you is not the real one. The timing is off between gesture and words. The head moves in a mechanical fashion. Gestures do not match the verbal message. Emotional gestures, timing, or duration seems off. When human speech is recorded and played backwards, mixed with the gibberish, short, very clear statement can sometimes be heard. Reverse speech is described as another form of human communication. Advocates state language is bi-level forward and reverse. As the human brain constructs the sounds of speech, it forms sounds in a way that two distinct messages are spoken simultaneously. One forwards, which is the conscious mind speaking, and the other is reverse, which is the unconscious mind speaking. Now let us read technique 3, a clean slate. Generally speaking, the more optimistic a person is about her future, the more forgiving she is of the past. The principle is most evident in situations when the past is directly associated with the future. The psychological links offers us a fascinating window of opportunity to gauge a person's true feelings and thought about a current situation by contrasting her feelings to the linked past. Hillary's former business partner Gary is pitching to the same potential client as her firm. After Gary's meeting, Hillary simply says something such as, "I am sorry that things ended the way they did." If Gary is feeling good about his future with this account, he will respond more kindly to Hillary. However, if he thinks his future concerning this account is not positive, his response will reflect his true feelings. When things are going well for us, we are more forgiving of the negative experiences that got us here in the first place. However, when we feel thwarted or frustrated by what we are doing, we tend to be more hostile towards the people and the circumstances causing us to be in this mess. There is a story. Gwen wants to know if things are serious with her former fiancé and his new girlfriend Pam. Of course, she can simply ask, but there is little surety she will get a truthful answer. Therefore, she may say, "I want you to know I value the time we were together. Now she simply gauges his response. If he is sarcastic and rude, he is probably not feeling too good about his current flame. However, if things are going well with Pam, he will likely respond with something gentler and kinder. Of course, growing his personality is helpful in setting a baseline. If he usually leans towards being overly sarcastic or overly nice, you need to know before you offer your declaration. Mood is rarely indicative of a person's present situation. It is more often a function of the future and sometimes the past. When in a good mood, a person likely anticipates something pleasurable. One can be on vacation and miserable if he is thinking about going back to work the next day. Conversely, one can be at work thinking about his upcoming vacation in Hawaii and he will be in a terrific mood. Of course, a person can be in a bad mood because of something that happened recently. However, statistically speaking, mood is a function of the future, and if you can rule out a recent past annoyance, you have greater certainty he is thinking of a future event. Now let us move to technique 5, eye accessing cues. Neuro-linguistic programming, an offshoot of Miltonian hypnosis, can give you interesting insight into a person's thinking, specifically how thoughts relate to eye movement. For instance, have you ever noticed a daydreaming person stares off into space, usually with his head cocked slightly to the right and eyes to the upper left? For right-handed people, this holds good for right-handed people. The following is the general schemata. When a person looks up, he is accessing or recalling visual information. If a right-handed person looks up and his left looks up and to his left, it indicates he is visually remembering a past event. For a left-handed person, the opposite is true. We find if a person is looking up and to his left, he is constructing a visual image. Generally, most right-handed people move their eyes up for visual, across for auditory, down for language and feelings, and right for constructed data and left for memories. The first thing you want to do is determine if your target fits into the general right hand or left hand category. You can do this by simply asking him the color of his first car. Once you have his representations, you are able to detect his real thinking. For instance, you ask your employee why she came in late, and she responds by saying, "There was such a bad car accident right in front of me." Then you might ask things such as, "What color was the car?" If she goes into construct mode instead of recall mode, you know she is hiding the truth.